Shalom Chazan Mugbe Ane Romena Jonas Pshenatitun Al Assyrians for Education. Khorzit Udu Ile Bazit Life After Retirement. Wilavaya Mumbar Echna Retire Vayich Min Shula Shanuch Min Pelchana Mujur Khayutan Varla Ya Mujur Khayutan Kamsolara. قدر خورزه دویلن کما سگمنت سبب یاریخ خورزله و سامت قامایه ایلا خواهم زمته به دکتر Barbara Sherry قد إلى Professor of Psychology at University of California, Fullerton. خورزه دوینی قربت خواه بوزده من پلگیسات یاریخ قد بتهمزم لکچر یابله بعضت retirement or aging وجور سبويتا بيتايلا مو بريشا بيتايلا دم بسيابخ من بار دا خورزت دكتور شيري داويلان انترفيو من كما بورسوبة همزمتا من كما بورسوبة قد ريتاير بينا مرنا قطن خيوته مجور وارلا.
Good morning, all. I welcome you all here this morning. Thank you for joining us. We have a great presenter for you today, and also welcome at Zoomland over there. Okay, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Barbara Sherry. She has been a professor here for quite a number of years. She has done a lot of different projects with us, and she graces us with her presence here today, as always. Been a wonderful advocate for Ollie and works very closely with us in regards to our successful aging. So she is the person, right now she is retired. She conducts research on cognitive aging and collaborates with the faculty from public health, kinesiology, nursing, aging studies, and of course the psychology department on chronic pain, cognition, and aging at the CSUF Fibromyalgia and Chronic Pain Center. She is also an associate or coordinator of the CSUS Aging Studies program here at Cal State Fullerton. So I would like to present Dr. Cherry. You'll love her just as much as I do.
Good morning. How are you doing today? Okay. Well, are you ready for retirement? Are you thinking about retirement? Been here, done that. Okay. Well, does it look like this? Because if it does, you have a little more planning to do. Okay? Just saying. So, So we want to go back and think about what it was like when you were working or what it's like when you're working. And even if you hated your job, there are certain things that were important about your job in terms of your health. Okay? So it has structure, right? Hopefully, at least before the pandemic, there was social engagement, although maybe you still do Zoom meetings, and that's sort of social, right? Probably every 4 or 5 years, your company decides they need a new software system. So you're back to learning things again. So these are important. These help. And these are things you want to bring into retirement, right? So one of the things that we need to think about is structure and purpose for your retirement. So you guys, and it requires planning. So, okay, so if you're just thinking about retirement, you're thinking, oh, I get to travel, I'm going to spend time with my grandkids, I get to sleep in. But that's not all of it. There are other things you need to think about in terms of activities or structure for your day-to-day life, correct? Because you can't travel all the time, can't be with your grandkids all the time. And after about 3 months of retirement, you're done sleeping in, am I right? And you got to think of other things to do. So I am going to talk about retirement from a psychological perspective. So I looked it up on Oxford definition. I'm not sure. They put in humans, so it's a study of the human mind, but it's humans and animals in terms of their behavior. And that's kind of what psychology is. And we have all different kinds of psychology: social, evolutionary, cognitive, which is my field. So I will be talking about it from a cognitive perspective, but all the things that I talk about today work in retirement in terms of not only cognition, but physical health, etc. So it all translates to a better retirement. So having said that, I tell you that, as I said, my talk is based on cognitive health. And so I'm going to talk about, am I doing okay? Okay. Physical health, physical activity, meaningful activity, cognitive activity, of course, but also things like gut health and emotional health and green health. Okay, so, and I like to talk about building a better brain, because we now know that we can build new brain cells even if we're older. So some of the things that you can do in your environment and with your activities are going to help you stay cognitively healthy. Okay, important, right? So what can go wrong? Well, we all know about the pandemic and all the shifts that occurred with that. There also might be some health issues. So my friends always would send me things during the pandemic. So I have things like this, which I love. One of my girlfriends sent me that. I also like this one, because those of us who teach, we were immediately, whether we were trained or not, now you're doing Zoom, okay? I was going to go to a Zoom training because we knew that Cal State Fullerton was going to shut down on campus classes. Of course, I checked my email before I went to my training on a Monday morning, and they said, if you're 65 or older, you're no longer allowed to come to class or to campus. So there you go. So my Zoom training was, you know, kind of just do it on the sly and hope it works. So we also have health issues that we might need to address as we approach retirement and as we age. So we have physical, cognitive, mental or emotional health that we might have to address, but what can go right, okay? We have, and that's when I say we now know that as we age, even older organisms can build new brain cells depending on their environment and what they do in their life, okay? So we have what's called neuroplasticity, and that's the idea that we're making new connections when we're learning things, or we're doing social engagements, or we're out taking a walk and talking to our friend and chasing down our dogs, right? Epigenetics, we will talk about that in a minute, but it's the idea that you can turn your genes on and off depending on your environment, okay? Huge, very, very important, okay? So depending on what you're doing, you can turn those good genes on and turn off the bad ones, all right? And then rebuilding your brain, and we'll talk about that. So here's neuroplasticity, little graph, but notice if you're cognitively engaged and you're doing activities that will help with that, you can build these new brain cells, okay? So we don't want to be here, we want to be up here, all right? So here's epigenetics and this idea that you can turn your brain cells on and off. So notice in this outer circle, these are things we can do something about, that we can control, right? So social support, we're going to talk about that later, but just engaging with other individuals, very important. Education, oh, you'll love it. Diet. But all the activities that you're doing can help you with your brain cells, all right? And your genes. So if we think about the mind and the body, okay, so for cognitive domains, we have things like memories, perception, ideas, thoughts, decisions. And then with the body, we have all the neurons, the neurochemicals, the transmissions between neurons, all right? All cognition, all cognitive activity is a result of neurological activity. But you can flip that. So neurological activity or growth is based on cognitive behavior, all right? So if you're doing more things with your brain, you know, games, etc., then you're building brain cells. We didn't always used to think this. So when I first started research in cognitive aging, it was a little depressing to go to conferences. But then when they figured out, you know, in rats and mice that we could build new cells with enriched environments, everybody got very excited. So happier place to be now. So, and we talk about this a lot in my field where we talk about cognitive and neural reserve or biological reserve. So the behaviors that we do that will help our brain are going to build our biology. So here's a roadmap. Here's where we're going. I might have mentioned some of these before, but I'm going to take them one by one. All of these things will help you stay healthy, build new brain cells, and turn those genes on and off, okay? So again, what they did, researchers did, is they took older rats, had them in, you know, just a cage with no toys, then put them in a new cage, which had like a running wheel and a jungle gym and all sorts of activities. And when the older rats went in there, at first they were just kind of stunned, okay? Like, what is this? Where have they put me now? But they started moving and they started playing. And they kept playing more and more, and they found that they were building new neurons and they were making new connections between the neurons that existed, okay? And so it actually improved learning. Synaptic activity is the connections between the adjacent neurons. They did it with mice as well, and found that these mice had less beta amyloid, which is one of the bad proteins that you accumulate may or may not lead to dementia, but it's a good thing if you have less beta amyloid. So they thought that was pretty awesome. So exercise, guys, moving, just going out and doing activities, even if it's just, you know, a 5-minute walk, all right? And I will mention one of the things, and this is an older slide, but it's the best one that shows this. There's a difference, there's a distinction between physical exercise and how long you sit, okay? And in the latest AARP magazine, they called it the sitting disease, sedentary behavior. I know, it cracked me up. But so the idea is, remember, gosh, I'm sure you guys can sing some of the commercials we used to watch, right? Like, my favorite is Tide, right? Tide gets clothes cleaner. Yeah. Anyway, apparently that was a good thing, you know, and now everything streams, so we don't really have commercials anymore. But the idea is that after 20 minutes, you would probably get up and go do a chore for 3 or 4 minutes and then come back and sit down and watch the rest of your show, right? We need to keep doing that, okay? It's really important to get up after about 30 minutes and just walk around or go to the restroom or pour another glass of wine, whatever it is that you do. Or you could just stretch, stand up and stretch a little bit. But sedentary behavior is problematic. And it turns out that even if you're very, very physically active, if you're also very sedentary, the physical activity doesn't protect you against the consequences of just sitting. But having said that, I have a colleague over in kinesiology who studies sedentary behavior, and not all of this behavior is bad for you, okay? So yeah, if you're binge watching for 4 hours, maybe that's a problem. But if you're reading a book, or you're working on the computer, or you're playing video games, okay? Now you're engaged, you're doing cognitive activities. And so then that behavior is not as destructive, I would say, okay? So, bottom line, keep moving, okay? So I know, you know, when we had the heat wave, you probably parked farther away to the storefront because you were finding the one place that had shade, right, for your car. But we need to keep doing that. If you can take a couple stairs, then if you're only going to the 2nd or 3rd floor, I see the college students, because my office is on the 8th floor, so I'm not taking the stairs anymore. But I see the college students who will walk into the elevator and get off at 2, and I'm just going, oh my gosh, come on. Move, you have to move. So walk a dog, borrow a neighbor's dog, walk a cat. At least try, it'll be interesting, right? So we need to keep doing these types of things to make sure that we're staying healthy. Okay, these are all good things for your brain, moving around, right? Okay, shifting to meaningful activity. So this could be physical activity, but it could also be social or artistic or cognitive or some other type of activity. And my favorite researcher, because I love to say his name, Csikszentmihalyi, talks about flow. So there must be 1 or 2 activities that you do that are so engaging you lose track of time. So maybe you're an artist. So maybe it's painting something. I would love to say that was me, but it's not. When I was in grad school, I used to have to code for experiments I was doing on computers. So I would do coding that would run my experiment and then analyze my data and dump it into a data file. I could be in the lab for like 4 hours and not even know that time had passed because I was so into doing that. So you guys have, anyone want to tell us what? Genealogy, so engaging, right? And you can just do it forever, right? Oh, would you come to my house, please? Pulling weeds, that's amazing. That would be awesome. For my husband, it was baseball when he was around. Oh my gosh, yeah, anything to do with baseball. Playing, coaching, whatever, watching, all of that. So sometimes that requires you thinking about it and deciding, well, what are the most important activities for me, okay? And it doesn't all come at once. One of the things I realized when I was involved in exercise and I would go to a gym, well, they went bankrupt, right? So then I had to think about, well, what do I do now? And it turns out I am not an inside person. I'm an outside person. So I have to look for activities and exercise that's outside. So sometimes it takes some time to think about what you most like to do and where you like to do it, okay? So we'll talk about Csikszentmihalyi and flow. Little cute little graph here that just shows you if you're in that flow channel, time just goes by and you're engaged. That's really healthy to do the types of activities that you totally are into, okay? So I have a little clip here that we're going to talk about. Meaningful activities, important, right? So here, somebody put out a top 10. This totally may not be your top 10, okay? So definitely spending time with family, etc. But, oh, I love sleeping. Yeah, that's great. But, oh, and maybe listen carefully to another's point of view. I'm not even going there, okay? But, so make your own list, all right? And make it with different time frames, all right? So that you can consider, maybe I'll take a day trip, or maybe I'll do this for the next hour and a half. Or now you're into travel where you're going to go visit a family member in another state, perhaps. Okay? I went to lunch yesterday with a friend, and she retired in 2015 when she was pretty young. And I go, so what did you do to plan your retirement? And she goes, well, the first year, the only thing I did is I went to every beach in Orange County. And there are an amazing number of beaches. She said, did you even know there's something called Christmas Beach? And so she spent her whole first year just doing day trips to check out all the beaches. You know, if it was my husband, it would be baseball stadiums, you know. So just plan a little bit. Think about things that you like to do, all right? And think about them in different time frames, because you can't travel every single day, right? Ooh, we get to move on to my fun place, cognition. So I'm going to talk about two of the primary domains that seem to be impacted when you are aging. Are things like executive function and certain types of memory, okay? And when I teach memory to my students, I spend 5 weeks on memory. But the type of memory I'm talking about here is episodic memory. So it's events and activities that you recall. What'd you do last night for dinner and who were you with? That would be episodic memory, okay? Executive function, which I love, all sorts of things. So very gently, go like this. Boom. Okay, that's where your executive function is, okay? And it's all our higher skills, okay? All the things we're proud about as a human. So planning, time management, working memory, attention, flexibility, all those types of things are what we call executive function. It is the last thing that gets connected in your brain as you're growing up. So when I'm teaching sophomores, I'm laughing at them and tell them, you guys have a couple more years before, you're there. It's one of the reasons one of the car insurance companies won't allow individuals less than 25 years old to rent their cars, right? Or get insurance. That is because they're not fully connected yet. But I will talk to them about decision making when they were like 17 and 18 and they all just kind of roll their eyes. I go, would you make the same decisions now that you made then? And they just, no. So it gets better. But it's also one of the things that ages out first, okay? So last to connect, first to go, executive function, right? Fun, right? So, and there are certain components to this. One is flexibility, there's inhibition, there's working memory. So you want to try a working memory task? You all look so excited. All right. So this is working memory is actually information that's in your short-term memory, but then you have to manipulate it, okay? So for instance, I'll do this the easy way first. I'll do a shorter list first. So think about the days of the week. Now you want to put them in alphabetical order and say them out loud. I think Thursday and then Tuesday and then Wednesday. Cool. Okay, so when you go home today, I want you to do the same thing with the months of the year. Okay? So that's working memory, all right? So that's part of executive function. And here's where it is, see? Right up here, prefrontal cortex. So, yeah, but we can build those brain cells, right? By practicing some of those things, right? So we can do some of you guys do brain games? A little bit. Okay. Let me move on to memory, and we'll try this one as well. So as I said before, episodic memory is what I'm basically talking about. Brain structures. So what is this? It's also called a hippocampus. That's the other name for it. This is a subcortical structure, very important in our brain for taking short-term memory and turning it into long-term memory, okay? And it's called hippocampus, right? Or if you've got two of them, hopefully you do, hippocampi, right? So subcortical structure, really important for putting together brain function. All right, and of course, so these are the types of domains that tend to decline with age, but they don't necessarily have to, okay? So we also have people who study superagers. Their episodic memory is the same as 20-year-olds, okay? And there are certain regions of their brain, anterior cingulate, if you want to know the structure, is larger, more connected in these individuals, all right? So kind of cool. And you have a link you can go to where they talk about things that make a super ager. I'm not going there right now, but you guys should all have the PDF, right? No? There's going to be a PDF posted after the talk, so you guys will have access to all the slides, all right? Because I already sent that. Okay, so building reserve. So what are the things you do? Some of you guys probably like crossword puzzles, right? Or jumble, or words with friends. We all there? Scrabble, you play games, jigsaw puzzles, Sudoku, you read. My sister does Wordle. What else? There's other stuff, right? Facebook, absolutely, yeah. Anything you can Google, right, is information. Yeah, so let's see if we can play this game.
I've heard people say that reading doesn't do as much for your brain as doing word puzzles. Is that true?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know that literature.
I would rather read.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I do both. You know, I do, and I play words with friends with my son, who kicks my butt, by the way. But yeah, I'm kind of with you in terms of reading. And you guys have computers? Or you can go to the library. I use the library for air conditioning too, because I'm too cheap to turn on my air conditioning. So during the day, I'll just go work at the library, but you can also just go there and play games if you want. So it's kind of cool. Love the library. Let's see if some of these brain games come up. 7 free brain games you haven't tried before, okay? Anyone want to? One of the things you can do is you can Google free brain games, okay? And just look around, pick some stuff. Some things go in and out depending on what you do. We used to do missionary and cannibals in here, but I haven't been able to find that link lately. But there's all sorts of different games, and pick a few of them, because they're all different cognitive domains. So the more different they are, the more how to play. Try peeks. Clear all the cards on the table. Yeah. Tap face-up cards that are either one above or one below the top card. Okay. Let's try that. Well, that wasn't very clever. Oh. That's all I got. You get the idea, but there's all different domains on here. So try the memory one, try this one. But again, just Google free games, and you should be able to come up with some activities that you might like to do, okay? Okay, so gut health. Turns out it's important. And also turns out that the second most large quantity of neurons in your body after the brain is the gut. Okay, so that makes what you put in, very important, all right? When I was like early 20s, I decided, oh my gosh, I'm an adult now. I'm fully grown. I don't need to eat vegetables anymore. Okay, that doesn't work, all right? So we have not only neurons in our gut, but also neurotransmitters. And there's a lot of communication back and forth between the brain and the gut and vice versa. So the food you eat, very important, okay? Apparently. All right, so here we have, so again, this connection between the gut and the brain influences things like stress, anxiety, mood, your behavior, because of all those neurons and neurotransmitters that are going back and forth. So it's huge. I have a colleague over in psychology who does this research, and I just was, what? So it's pretty important. So, you guys heard of the blue zones? Okay. So, and you know you can just Google blue zones. So those of you who have not heard of it, these are locations in the world, there's 5 of them, where people live to be over 100 in good health and are cognitively intact and have excellent quality of life, okay? So notice that one of them is over in Loma Linda, all right? Seems that some of it is based on just movement. So people are moving around, doing activities like pulling weeds. Some of it is based, a lot of it's based on diet, so it's plant-based diets, etc. Social support, social interaction, all those things. So we're trying to study more about the blue zones so that the rest of us can live to 100 just being very happy and healthy, right? Would be great. So here are my only tips, because this is not my area. Less sugar, very important. Okay, so anything you can do to eliminate sugar doesn't mean fake sugar, it just means no sugar, or less sugar, I should say. Choose healthy fats, so olive oil, avocados. Oh, so eat like a squirrel, so you know, all the nuts and the seeds, all good. Vitamin D, turns out I did a study with a colleague in nursing a number of years ago with some people from Ollie, and it turns out that vitamin D is very important for your health, okay? And some people don't have enough of it, so you need to keep that in mind. And basically, Mediterranean type diets are supposed to be very good, you know? The avocado, turns out I now love hummus. So those are good things if you can add certain things to your diet, okay? Fish, which I hate, so I don't do that very much, but fish is good. Okay, well, we'll do a little bit of emotional health because I want to talk about happiness. And then we'll take a break, all right? So Martin Seligman and Csikszentmihalyi established the science of happiness. They decided, they had been studying for years quality of life, well-being, all that type of thing, and determined that we spend so much time focused on depression. What if we flip it and focus on happiness and see what happens? So Martin Seligman now offers a master's in positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. And in 2005, these individuals did an online clinical trial, which was very interesting because totally online, not much expense in terms of, bringing people in. And so some of the rationale for doing this type of research, have you guys looked at the Nun study at all? Okay, you can Google the Nun study. It was established by Dr. Snowden many years ago, but it's a Catholic Sisters of Notre Dame. They wanted to study Alzheimer's disease, and so part of the study was donating their brains at autopsy when they passed. And it turns out they started with like over 600 women. The cool thing about this study is they were able to control for things like gender, level of education, work environment, because these women had all lived together and were teachers for their entire lifetime, okay? So they didn't have to think about that stuff. What they found, they found a number of different things, and you can go look at some of their publications if you want, but they also determined that they had over 100 autobiographical statements from some of these women when they were in their 20s. And what they found was they went through with their grad students and identified positive words, positive affect in these autobiographies. And they found that those women, when they came in when they were 20, and now they're 70 and 80 and 90, those who had more positive affect lived longer, okay? So the other thing is this study about positive tweets and how it reduced the risk of heart disease if you had positive affect, okay? So they decided it was worth doing this study and establishing positive psychology as a new domain of psychology. They had 577 participants who decided to do it online. They had 5 different happiness exercises that they did, that they randomized people into, and then they had a control group, okay? So they took each of these 5 and compared it to the control group. So one of these, and then they measured happiness before and after the week when they were doing this, but then they extended it and tracked them after a month and 3 months and 6 months to measure their happiness. And so, and these are like pretty easy peasy things to do. Powerful is the gratitude visit, okay? So write and deliver a letter of gratitude, and they're supposed to do one thing each day for a week, okay? And it turns out that gratitude is huge. So if there are people you're grateful to, that's a good happiness exercise. Also, 3 good things in life, and you write that down each day for a week. You at your best. Write about when you were at your best and reflect on strengths in the story, and then review it. And then they have a link. So I put this on the handout that you guys hopefully have picked up. You can go online to either one of these, and one of them's a questionnaire. It's 120 questions, I think. The other one, I don't know how long it is. But they identify what they consider your signature strengths. Empathy, patience, whatever your signature strengths are, they identify this. And then you're supposed to use one of these each day in a new and different way, or use the 5 highest strengths more often during the week and document it. And then, of course, we have the placebo. I always think of this as Spanky in our gang, but whatever. So write about early memories. So this is a placebo. So gratitude had the highest increase in happiness, but it didn't last as long as some of the other ones, okay? Because like I said, they went out to 6 months. So lasting happiness was the 3 good things that they wrote about. Also using signature strengths. And it could be some combo of all of these, but those who persisted with the exercises had the highest gain. So they they asked them after 6 months, did you keep trying these things? Did you keep doing these things? So, and then because of this research, one of my graduate students from the Fibromyalgia and Chronic Pain Center decided that he was interested in pursuing this happiness idea and whether or not it would translate to physical and cognitive function. And as it turns out, if we do, so there were 10 questions on happiness, 10 questions on sadness, and then you subtract the sadness from the happiness, and the higher the score, the happier you are. And so he compared that to measures of physical activity, so objective activity, but also subjective, self-report. We did the same thing with our cognitive tasks. So we also had performance tasks and then self-report. So for the physical activity, we had a balance activity. Were any of you guys in our study? Ah, so you know what we're talking about. Okay, so balance is measured in a lot of different ways, and it's by trained personnel, so we just let them do their thing. But we have this 30-second chair stand, and then they get to walk, right? But we also asked them to self-report activities of daily living. So, you know, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, getting out of bed, all that sort of thing, showering, and had them complete that as well. For the cognitive stuff, we had a 10-item word list that they had to do. And so we'd give them the 10 words. They would report them back. Then, like 20 or 30 minutes later, we'd say, oh, we gave you a list of 10 words. Can you remember them? But then we had recognition as well, which is when you're given those 10 words, but embedded in there are new words you've never seen before, and you just have to say yes or no, that was on the list. The other thing we did is we asked them how forgetful you've been in the last week. So again, subjective, you know, to see if there was a difference between objective and subjective. You want to try that 10-item word list? Yeah, we can do it after the break. Okay, so we could take a break here.
It's up to you how long you want to take, 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
What do you want? Vote. 5? 10?
No cheating.
Yeah, no talking to each other. We can do the words first if you want. That'll be your immediate recall. And then when you come back, maybe we'll do delayed. Okay? So here you go. And when you report them back, so you can do it out loud. Usually we do it one-on-one, but you can do it out loud. You can report them back in any order. Okay? You ready? Ocean, animal, coin, book, palace, officer, party, boy, camp, rock. Okay, how many of those words can you recall? You guys are doing great. Go take a break. I might ask you later, right? Yeah, be back here at 10:40. Okay. More happiness also predicted better immediate recall, better word recognition, and less self-reported forgetfulness. Okay? So, basically, more happiness improved both physical and cognitive performance and function. So, activities which promote happiness can help adults to maintain healthier lifestyles. Okay, that's kind of the take-home message for you guys. All right? So practice those exercises. They're on the flyer I gave you. So, yeah. And gratitude, huge. So the other part of emotional health that I'll talk about, and this is based on research from my colleague, Laura Zettel Watson, if some of you know her, social support. So resources and interactions provided by others that may be useful for helping a person cope with a problem. So, and I love this quote, call it a clan, call it a network, call it a tribe, call it a family, whatever you call it, whoever you are, you need one. And so, and one of the issues, and you'll see on one of the future slides, when you retire, you lose part of your clan, okay? So now you need to think of ways to go out and socially engage with other clans or other groups, right? So here's basically you in the middle, and then you have right around you your closest friends and family members, then those not quite as close but still important. Outer circle, people you are less close with, but maybe you do something with them once or twice a year. So very, very important. And so common members, so your spouse, your partner, immediate family, close friends, extended family, acquaintances, neighbors, coworkers, and some of those overlap, right? So very important to maintain some sort of social network, all right? One of the big health issues that we're now trying to address is, and especially post-pandemic, is isolation and loneliness. Those are very bad for your health, okay? So hang there with other people. So you have lower levels of depression, anxiety, higher levels of life satisfaction, fewer health problems, faster disease recovery. So that's huge, right? Longer life. And so major events, and so here's the retirement piece. So you need to structure or plan on new social interactions if you don't stay in touch with the people that you were working with. And so a lot of these can be isolating if you don't plan, all right? So I love some of these. My favorite here, so stay connected to coworkers, yeah. Get reacquainted with your spouse or partner. I love that one, right? I was a little nervous when our youngest child moved out of the house, but it turned out to be really good for my marriage. So reacquainting, yes. Volunteer, join a social group, take a class. And then try on Facebook. Somebody mentioned Facebook here. So there's different ways of interacting with other people, right? And this just shows you what we're using and maybe continuing to use. Not so much. Does anybody here do Twitter, TikTok, Instagram? No, me either. So, whatever. That's for younger people.
All three of those are at the low end of the spectrum.
There you go. Okay, so maintain connections, form new relationships. So stick with the people, meet new people. And one of the things that we've done with one of our aging internships, especially during the pandemic, is that we had our students, our college students, interact with older adults who were particularly isolated and alone. And they were tech support. So they were teaching these older adults how to text, how to use Facebook, how to turn on their computer, you know. I mean, and it's powerful. We've been doing it ever since. So it was a powerful thing to do to keep them less isolated. Okay. Wow. Well, before I get to this, this is kind of some of the stuff that we've already talked about. Remember that 10-item word list? Okay. Go ahead, any order, say as many as you can recall. Do you want me to tell them all to you again? Okay. Ocean, animal, coin, book, palace, officer, party, boy, camp, rock. We tend to remember the very first words we hear, the first few, so that's sort of like long-term memory. There's usually a curve that's like this, so all the middle words are gone, okay? And then maybe you remember the last two words or the last word because that's short-term memory, okay? So that's kind of the way that goes. Yeah, so let me see what else I wanted to tell you. Okay, so as I said, it's all about your environment. So we talked about activity, diet, lifestyle, education. Oh, so keep learning, people. Ollie is great for that because there's all these classes and activities for social interaction, right? So Ollie is cool. Also, your environment, okay? It turns out that if you are spending time in green spaces, that's really good for your health. Okay, they did a study in Toronto where they went through the whole city. They had a huge study they were doing, and so they took some of that study, and then they went out and measured the number of trees in the neighborhood and compared different neighborhoods. And what they found was that those neighborhoods that had more trees, the residents that lived there had better physical and cognitive function. So it's huge. So, and I think these pictures are actually from the Arboretum. So you guys know where that is. Just go do a walkabout. That's really, really important. They did another study in the United States. I'm sure there's more, but this one study that I read a number of years ago, they did a digit span test. Should I give you that one? You want this one? So I'm going to recite some numbers, and you're going to say them back to me, okay? And I'll try not to make the list really long, all right? So, but it keeps getting longer if you get them all right. So here we go. 2, 7, 3, 8, 9, 1. Now say them back to me. and you're not allowed to write them down. No writing them down, guys. You guys did really well. Okay, so the list would keep getting longer and longer, so that's digit span forward. There's also something called digit span backward, my fave, right? So this is not the meanest one, though. There's another test that we didn't use in our study that's meaner. But this one, I'm going to say some numbers, and then you're going to say them backwards, right? All right, so here we go. 5, 8, 2, 3, 4, 9. Okay, say them out loud backwards. You guys are so good. You're good at this. Okay, well, in this particular study, they used these measures with individuals, and then they sent them out either to a mall, which is all concrete, right? Or a place like a park, an arboretum, and had them wander around for like an hour or an hour and a half. And then they tested them again. And those individuals who went to the park where it was green had better scores than the people who walked around on concrete, okay? So avail yourselves of all the parks and beautiful places we have. I mean, as long as not during a heat wave, okay? But yeah, now that it's getting a little bit cooler, it's wonderful to be outside and be healthy, right? And this helps your brain, helps your body because you're walking. Yeah, so there you go. So green health, also important. Okay, I want to know what's on people's bucket lists. Ooh. But nice. Yeah, you can come to my house too because my place needs a little help, let me tell you. But then you're outside, right? And it's green? Good call, good call. What else? What else is on the bucket list? Staying healthy, that's huge. Very important. Yeah, and doing all the things that contribute to that, that's fun, right?
Visit some friends in North Carolina and Pennsylvania.
Awesome. How fun. So have you done that already, or you're about to do that, or?
Well, my wife is the one that plans trips. It's on her list of things.
It's on her list of things to do, right? Yeah. Okay. And if you have spouses or partners, your bucket list won't look the same as your partners, right? Sometimes. I mean, I would be willing to go to all the baseball stadiums in the United States, but there are some, I wouldn't go play golf with my husband. So, some things work better than others. Anyone else? Any brave soul?
I want to go to Washington, D.C. and see all the museums.
Ooh, that'll be awesome. I got kicked out of the Smithsonian. What did I do? It was like 15, 20 years ago, but I was running, what do they call that, green space? Between all the mall, yeah. So I was on a run, but the door was open. So I went in, the door to the Smithsonian was open, but it apparently was only open for employees. It hadn't opened for the general public yet, so I got escorted out. So it wasn't horrible, but yeah, it's kind of fun. Other things? And it's nice to explore things and know that you won't do them, okay? So I thought maybe, because this is my second career, I thought for my third career, maybe I'd do voiceover. I thought that sounded great. That sounds so fun. Like you'd be on a cartoon and you're hanging out with other people in the studio. So they teach that. So I actually had a class the other day with somebody who does voiceover as a professional, and he makes a very good living and he loves it. Turns out, if you're going to do that, you need to build your own studio in your house, and you can do all your work in your little studio all alone. And that's probably great for him, but I will not be doing that because that's not part of my exit plan. I want to be out socially engaging with individuals. So, but it was good to learn that. And it was very interesting to have, it was like a 90-minute class, and it was through a community college, and it was great just to learn about it. And now I know that will not be my next career, right? So I basically only have one more slide. So I want to know if you guys have questions. Should I give you another cognitive test?
Dr. Kirk, can you repeat the question so the Zoomies can hear it? Or give them the mic, it's up to you. This way the Zoomies can hear you.
Is there a chance, if you have a friend that's super negative and has been all their life, to intervene and talk to them to help them be happy again?
Wow, that's a good question. Wow. Yeah, I know a few people like that. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you could slip them one of those exercises, hand them one of those flyers, and maybe they'll figure it out. Has to be their idea, right? Not your idea for them. So give them one of the flyers and see what happens. Because, yeah, it's so health promoting to be happier and to laugh a lot and to, have good times with your friends. What else?
Recalling memory, like these quizzes we just had, is one thing, but what about when you start losing your long-term memory, like your childhood, and you can't recall, things like oftentimes people say, well, you know who I'm talking about, like you're trying to come up with a word or an actor that was in a movie or something. What type of memory loss does that engage, and can you recover that somehow?
Well, I like to think of our brains as being really cluttered at this stage in our lives. So it's just going to take a little longer for that information to wander out. So my husband and I used to have conversations. We go, remember that guy? He was on this movie. He did this. He did this. And so, I would basically say, come back to me in 24 hours. And I will have that information. And so that is normal, okay? And, we have what's called semantic memory. We have a lot of redundancy in our brain, which is awesome, and we store things in different places. And so one of the things that we do with semantic memory is all the stuff you learned throughout all your education, all those little factoids. So it's your dictionary, it's your thesaurus, it's your encyclopedia. And those things get stored in various places. So if I'm thinking, one of the things I find very intriguing about memory is that if you're trying to remember a name, for instance, okay, well, I don't remember the name, but I know it starts with a B, and I know it's one syllable, okay? And so you've got things stored in the B file, you've got things stored in the one syllable file, and so you have things in different places, which will help you. And it turns out, like, There's some research that suggests, no, that pretty much indicates that whether you have brain damage or you're normal, they've tested individuals, and different objects live in different parts of your brain. So if it's animals, it might be here. If it's tools, it might be here. If it's cars, it might be here. So we have these chunks or files, if you will, of information all over the place. Okay? Does that help a little bit? Yeah. So you'll remember, it just might be, you know, for me now, maybe it's not just 24, maybe it's 48 hours, but I will typically remember, and it'll just pop up out of nowhere. It's just wandering through the brain, right? Yeah. Other questions? Okay, well, I have a little, another video, so we'll see if I need help or not.
Memory, I can't remember her name, but Bobby McFerrin's mom taught opera at Fullerton College. Oh my God. I got to meet her. Yeah, that was so special when I met her. Yeah, but I'm blanking. Talk about memory. I can't remember her name. I'm blanking.
You will.
I will.
You will.
I'll
Just
think
a little
about it
later.
when I'm in the car.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Because that's kind of all I got, but hopefully that was helpful.
One of the things that bothers me is the news. The most negative presentation possible. In fact, when you see some stations will have what's good about the world, you know, at the end of their presentation, it's good to see that, you know, and it kind of picks you up. But the news continues to divide and to create problems for us.
I agree. I don't watch TV news. I'm really old school. I like my newspaper. So that's how I get my news. So I don't watch TV news. I don't watch negative things. I just try to be selective about, you know, what I want to attend to. So if there's something super important, my kids will tell me. Right? Yeah. But other than that, but you're right. I think that promotes a lot of negativity. So I try to avoid that. You know, I mean, maybe I'm an ostrich with my head in the dirt or the sand or whatever you want to call it, but it just makes me happier to avoid that sort of thing. Yeah. What else?
Another comment, what he said, because I guess the millennial, the Gen X's and the Gen whatever they are, get their news different ways, like
yeah.
some Twitter or TikTok or whatever.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's healthier, you know, to not just do TV news. Yeah, yeah. So, and it's a habit, right? So one of the things that probably you have to do is think of something to substitute for that time so you have a different activity instead of going to watch TV news. Yeah. But, yeah. Like read a book.
And her name was Sarah. I think it's Sarah McFerrin. I remember her name.
See, that wasn't even 24 hours. Oh my gosh. Do you want more brain games? I can send you home with them. Okay, you want to name 2 objects for every letter in your complete name. Work up to 5 objects. So if you go through, you know, first and last name, 2 objects. My brother had a traumatic brain injury a couple years ago, And so they would do a lot of neuropsych testing with him, which is like you got to do in the FM study. And so one of the things that they wanted him to do was name animals, and he wasn't very good at it, okay? And so that would always, take down his score, his overall score. So the idea is, and it's a pretty consistent test, people will ask you, okay, I want you to name as many animals as you can think of in the next minute. Go. And it gets harder and harder to think of things. You can see some people going to the farm, and then they're going to the Serengeti, and then maybe they're going to Australia to name different animals, right? Well, what he did, because his fiance decided that he would need to practice before he went in and did his cog testing. So he ended up going through the alphabet and naming an animal in the order of the alphabet. And when he went in and he could do 26 names, and they just looked at him like he was nuts because he could do it. And so he lives in the desert, and I go visit him periodically. So I was stuck in traffic one time. There was some big mess there. So I decided, okay, I'm going to try and name an animal for every letter of the alphabet. It's not that easy. There are certain letters that are pretty awful. So he did much better than I did. So, but yeah.
I think there's a Dr. Seuss book that does that. I remember for why it's a yawning yellow yak.
Oh, so then you have alliteration too.
Yeah, I mean, when my kids were young, we had a Dr. Seuss book. I think we must have lost it, unfortunately. But yeah, for each letter, and Dr. Seuss, but yeah, even this would have been in the early 80s, mid 80s. I can still remember a yawning yellow yak.
I might have to get that for my brother, actually. He would probably appreciate that. Yeah. I think when I got to the U, maybe the Y, Z, you think zebra, but some of the other ones were a little bit strange. Yeah. So anyway, so now you guys get to name objects for every letter of your name, right? So when you go to a boring meeting, think about things that are going to entertain you. I mean, seriously. Some of the events, when they first started having them here, when I first came to Cal State Fullerton, I just went, oh, just shoot me now. So I would, think of mind games that I could do to entertain myself during the most boring parts. Yeah. So, but yeah, you guys can do that.
I guess the Zoomies have no questions. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Then if there are no more questions or comments, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it.